prior authorization is the task everyone in your practice quietly dreads. A drug or a scan needs the insurer's sign-off first, so someone has to dig through the chart, figure out exactly what that payer wants, write the justification, and send it in. And if one required detail is missing, it comes back denied, and you start over. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to build a workflow that drafts the whole authorization for you and organizes every request while keeping a person in charge of what actually gets submitted. AI does the paperwork. Your team stays in control. That's how you get the speed without the compliance risk. Let's name the cost, because prior auth is one of the most expensive quiet tasks in a practice. A provider orders something, a medication, an MRI, a sleep study, and before the patient can get it, the insurer has to approve it. That approval isn't automatic. Someone on your team has to find out whether that specific payer even requires authorization, then figure out the exact documents that payer demands, then pull those details out of the chart, then write a medical necessity justification and submit it the way that payer accepts. Every payer wants something slightly different. Blue Cross wants the A1C and a documented metformin trial for a weight loss drug. United wants 6 weeks of conservative therapy before an MRI. Aetna wants a failed first-line drug and a TB screen before a biologic. Miss any one item and the request bounces back as a denial. And now you're doing it twice while the patient waits. But look at the shape of this work. The rules per payer are knowable. The chart already holds the clinical facts. The letter follows the same pattern every time. Known rules, known facts, a predictable format, that's not work that needs a person starting from a blank page for every request. That's work a machine can draft, as long as a person still decides what goes out the door. Let's be precise about what we're building, because AI prior authorization can sound like a robot that talks to insurance companies on its own. It isn't. It's an assistant that prepares the paperwork and hands it to a person to approve. Here's the flow. A new request comes in. The workflow looks up that payer's rules. Does this even need authorization? And what documents does it require? And it checks whether the order is complete before it does anything else. If the request has everything it needs, the AI drafts the medical necessity letter, mapping the clinical notes to each item the payer asked for, and it tells you plainly which requirements are met and which are still missing. All of that runs on its own. Then comes the line the workflow is not allowed to cross. It does not submit. The finished draft lands in front of your office manager, who reads it and clicks approve or decline. Nothing reaches the payer until a human says so. And if a request comes in incomplete, a missing diagnosis, a missing code, the workflow never drafts on bad data. It flags what's missing and routes it back to the front desk. The machine does the drafting and the organizing, the person does the approving. Let's build it. Same setup as the other videos on this channel, N8N for the workflow, mock data only, no real patient information anywhere in this demo. If you're brand new to N8N, there's a full setup walkthrough linked in the description that takes you from zero to a running workflow. Start there, then come back. The first section is intake. The trigger here watches a spreadsheet. The practice is prior auth queue. If your team already tracks pending authorizations in a spreadsheet, and a lot of practices do, this plugs straight into how you already work. And that trigger doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. It could just as easily watch an inbox, an intake form, or connect to your EHR. Wiring it into your existing system is the part we set up for you. When a new request lands, two things happen before any drafting. First, the workflow looks up that payer's rules. Does this service actually need prior authorization, and exactly which documents does this insurer require? Avery Holt's Ozempic request goes to Blue Cross, and Blue Cross wants an A1C, a documented metformin trial, the BMI, and a lifestyle counseling note. Second, it checks the order is complete. Watch this Rao, Sophia Reyes. Her colonoscopy order came in with no diagnosis and no ICD-10 code. The workflow catches that immediately, flags it, and refuses to draft on it. That's the safety catch working before the AI ever runs. Section 2 is the heart of it. Draft, then approve. This is where the AI does the writing and the human keeps control. First, the draft. This node takes Avery's request and the payer's required docs list and writes a medical necessity letter. But the important part is what it's instructed to do and not do. It maps the clinical notes to each item Blue Cross asked for. A1C of 8.9. Check. 6 months of metformin. Check. BMI 31. Check. Lifestyle counseling documented. Check. And it's told to invent nothing. If a required item weren't in the chart, it wouldn't paper over the gap. It would list that item under still needed. For Avery, everything's there, so it comes back ready to submit with a clean draft letter. Now, the part that makes this safe to put in a real practice. The workflow does not submit that letter. It emails it to the office manager, and then it stops and waits. This is a real approval email. The draft is right there, the requirements it met are listed, and there are 2 buttons, approve or decline. The workflow is paused. Nothing moves until a person clicks. Watch. The manager reads Avery's draft, it looks right, and clicks approve. Only now does the workflow act on that human decision. The request status flips from new to approved right there in the queue, and a row gets written to a separate tracking log, who the patient was, the payer, the service, that it was approved, who approved it, and when. So you always have a complete time-stamped record of every authorization and the person who signed off on it. If the manager had clicked decline instead, the draft is never submitted. The workflow flags it for revision and sends it back to your team, so nothing incomplete ever reaches the payer. The AI proposes, the human disposes. 2 shorter beats close out the build. First, the safety net. What happens to the request the workflow caught earlier? Sophia Reyes's order was missing its diagnosis and its code, so instead of drafting, the workflow sends a short note to the front desk naming exactly what's missing and sets her status to needs info. No half-finished letter, no denial from bad data, just a clear ask to complete the order before it moves forward. That's the workflow protecting you from the most common cause of prior auth denials, submitting something incomplete. Second, the follow-up sweep. Prior auths don't fail only when you submit them wrong, they fail when they sit. So a second, separate flow runs once every morning, looks at everything still pending past the payer's typical turnaround time, and sends your office manager one digest. Here are the authorizations that are overdue for a status check. Nothing falls through the cracks, and no one has to remember to go look. Let's close the loop on the thing that matters most here, because prior auth touches coverage, money, and clinical decisions all at once. The whole design rests on one gate. A person approves every single request before it goes anywhere. Notice what the AI never does. It never submits to a payer on its own. It never invents a clinical fact to make a request look stronger. It never decides that a patient does or doesn't qualify. All it does is read the payer's rules, pull what's genuinely in the chart, draft the letter, and hand it to a human to approve. That approval step isn't a formality. It's the compliance spine of the whole thing. It's why you can put this in a real practice. And one honest note on data. This demo runs entirely on mock records, so there's no protected health information anywhere in it. A real prior auth workflow touches some of the most sensitive data a practice holds: diagnoses, medications, member IDs. So a live deployment needs the compliant path. The right hosting, a signed business associate agreement, the whole setup. That's genuinely the part most practices get wrong, and it's exactly the part we handle for you. Whether that's a properly hardened self-hosted N8N or a healthcare native platform that's HIPAA compliant from day one. I've packaged this whole workflow as a free download, the importable N8N file and the ready-to-use prior auth tracking sheet, with the payer rules and the log already set up, so you can drop in your own requests and start drafting authorizations right away. The link's in the description. Grab it and you've got the skeleton of your own prior auth assistant. If you'd rather have it built and wired into your real queue and your team's inbox instead of assembling it yourself, you can book a working session on that same page. Either way, subscribe. I break down one of these practice automations in every video. And if you'd rather build on a platform that's HIPAA compliant out of the box, I use Caragon. Link in the description. quick disclosure, they're an affiliate partner, so that link supports the channel. See you in the next one.